Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahavedyam Karavavagai Tejasvinavadhetamastu ma Vidvishavagahi Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat. Good evening. We are discussing Sadhana Panchakam and using Sadhana Panchakam as the skeleton for our discussions aimed at better Nishta. We were going through the first two shlokas and we were getting into the second shloka. The Sadhana Panchakam starts with that. Vedo Nityam Adhiyatam. Study the Veda daily, and we had an elaborate discussion on what it could mean practically for those who are not from the Vedic background. So what is the point of that first instruction? Then the second instruction, Taduditam karmasvanushthiyatam. So these two go together. Vedo nityam adhiyatam, taduditam karmasvanushthiyatam. Tene shishya vidhiyatam apachitihi. Offering to the Lord and doing those actions as an act of devotion and offering the results and not claiming ownership over the results of action. Kamye matischeddatam, kamye matistyajyatam. Giving up spiritual materialism or using spiritual tools and methods for satisfying one's desire. So do not be propelled by desire rather than be propelled by devotion to the reality and towards the goal of self-purification. That is the motive, not satisfying the desires. That is not the motive. So you have to cultivate this like a mindset. It's a kind of a mindset that we cultivate and an approach to liberating spirituality. We introduced a term. Then what happens when your mind is purified? You learn to be more objective about the limitations in the various enjoyments. And to basically not the various enjoyments and things of the world, not each one separately, but as an overall understanding, an overall maturity that sees the inherent limitation in looking for happiness in things and looking for happiness as a experience that is based on possession and experience of things, situations, people, relationships. So not looking for happiness in the world. That doesn't mean you are supposed to be depressed, and we discussed all that. How you are able to be objective like this is because you are living a life of that, living a life disciplined and purified through the liberating spiritual approach and the practices. What happens is the effect of the negative karmas from all our past life, that overall effect of negativity inside us, and that which propels the mind towards attachment to and aversion, that propels the mind towards egoistic pursuits, that clouds our perception of reality and makes us take subjective approach to everything. So that is because of the effect of the previous habit patterns at various levels. So that is called papa. Papa means papa ughav paridhuyatam. Purify all the sinful accumulated sins. Remove all the clean yourself of all the accumulated sins. So the sin here is a very profound way of understanding. When we understand papa and punya, we don't understand it like in the monotheistic religion, like God made some decree and you disobey that, then you go to that is sin and that takes you to hell. So we don't present it like that. So what we understand as papa and punya is what is commonly called as bad karma and good karma, right? So generally virtuous actions are considered good karma, and non-virtuous actions that are motivated by selfishness, greed, etc. are considered bad karma. Now, from the point of view of yoga, means the life of liberating spirituality, anything that puts us in bondage, anything that puts us into more bondage and helplessness, anything that alienates us from reality and pushes us into the cloud of subjectivity, anything that binds us more and more into this subjective dream that we called life, which results in inability to be objective about things and inability to pursue one's goals. We have a beautiful shloka in Bhagavad Gita. We keep seeing that shloka in many contexts. So I would like to remind you of that shloka. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. By association, repeated association, desire is born. From desire, anger is born. Kamat krodha bijayate. From desire, anger is born because what is anger? It is nothing but frustrated desire. So every time you're angry, you go into that and watch that anger would be a result of some other frustration. When we are able to calm down the rage of anger and we are able to look into the thought pattern that sustains the anger, behind that thought pattern will be some kind of a desire that was not fulfilled. Either a righteous desire or a selfish desire, that doesn't matter. But anger, behind every anger, there is a desire. Kamat krodha vijayate. From anger is born, from desire is born anger. From anger, one becomes deluded and not able to see things as they are. Sammoha. And from moha comes what is called smriti vibhramaha, means misplaced priorities and not making the right connections, means you make wrong connections. The anger blinds you. We say, he's blind with rage, we say, right? So the anger blinds us and we make wrong associations and leads us to make wrong decisions. Smriti vibhramaha, it's a very beautiful term. Smriti means the ability to recollect. So we are not able to recollect the right conclusions for a given situation. We are not able to recollect the right knowledge about something or somebody. When we are blind with rage, it covers the knowledge and it covers our access to what we actually know. That is why we regret after we are angry and we do something that is not very smart. We regret later because anger has blinded us to our own knowledge. What we already know, we are not able to go ahead with that. So kamat krodha vijayate, krodhat bhavati sammoha, mohat smriti vibhramaha. The smriti means memory. It's the function of memory, ability to recollect and connect the things together, associating the right knowledge with the right object. All that comes under smriti. And when that is gone, buddhi nasha means your ability, your capacity for discernment is gone. and discernment, sustaining the will in the right direction, all that is gone. Buddhi nashat pranashyati, when your buddhi or the intellect or the thinking faculty, the discerning faculty, the discriminative faculty is clouded and covered by all this, pranashyati, the individual is destroyed. What does this mean? The individual is destroyed. We have seen many occasions. I keep repeating this because the perspective of how what it is actually means to destroy oneself. No? The commentary says pranashyati, the individual is destroyed, means the individual becomes incapable of pursuing a goal. The individual becomes incapable of pursuing a proper goal that is in alignment with the fundamental seeking, the fundamental goals of life, the four purushartha. Incapable of pursuing a purushartha means you will not be able to pursue virtues and righteousness in the way they are. You will not be able to pursue wealth in the way it should be. Like, getting too worked up with the stock market and gambling and all that. Somehow, you have the knowledge, but your knowledge doesn't work because of your restlessness or insecurity. You make wrong decisions, right? Propelled by various other factors. So these are all examples. So you are not able to pursue wealth. You are not able to pursue pleasure, because to pursue a pleasure, one needs a very high quality senses and quality of mind, the right mood and patience. Only a patient person who does not rush into things can actually enjoy fine and refined pleasure, even a normal sensual pleasure. So one does not, one loses the capacity to pursue even pleasure. The four purusharthas: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Moksha is what we are discussing about, the liberation. One cannot pursue values and righteousness. One becomes incapable of pursuing wealth and securities and relationships. One becomes incapable of pursuing and sustaining pleasures. And also, one becomes incapable of pursuing moksha. So, this also says a person who is a failure in everyday life cannot come and hope for attaining liberation. The spiritual liberation is not for a loser. Now, here, the loser or the one who has won in life is not defined by your outward success. When we talk about success, a successful person means a person who has gained the mastery over oneself. That's what we mean by successful person. When faced by success, when faced by conducive circumstances or adverse circumstances, when faced by success or failure, when faced by pain and pleasure, the person does not lose his or her center. The person does not lose oneself to events in life. The person is not motivated by the result of action alone. The alone is the key word. The person is not motivated by the result of action means the person is not an automaton. Everybody does action because of the need or the desire to experience the result of action. So that is not denied here. Motivated by the result alone means even in situations when one is supposed to do one's part, because of the uncertainty or the anxiety over the result, one is not able to do. So if I will be successful, I will do this. But success and failure is not, I cannot control that. It's not under our control. But if I don't do, then I feel the guilt of negligence. So in that case, whether it is going to succeed or not, these things that we call as duty. So what will be the outcome? We don't know. When the mother nurses the child, We don't know if the child is going to end up as a leader or a virtuous person or a criminal. But still, the mother nurtures the child. It's not under her control. It's a huge society out there, with all these, left liberal things taking over the education. You still send the child to school. You don't know what that thing will turn out into. But still, the child needs to be educated. It's a jungle out there, but still one has to live the life. That is why we teneshasya vidiyatam. You do all the to be done actions in an attitude of worship to the Lord, because life has to go on. There is no choice here, right? So, papaugha paridhuyatam means you clear the cloud of sins. The the whole bunch of sinful karma means you remove all the impurities in the mind that are constantly preventing me from discerning the worthy goals. Discerning means becoming aware of and being very clear about being clear about what is the right thing to pursue. That is a huge thing. When we talk about intelligence here, purity of mind and intelligence and discernment, it will be worthwhile for us to remember this concept of IQ, EQ, and SQ. Long ago, we have discussed it in our class, right? IQ, everybody knows, intellectual quotient, solving problems very fast and all that. The Mensa Club and all that. We know about IQ because the entire education is all about IQ. Then later, people woke up to something called EQ. It's not enough to be smart. One should also be a good human being in the middle of being smart. So we have to take care of how our actions affect others. We have to take that into our account. We have to do the smart thing in a humane way. All that comes under EQ. Now, they say EQ is more fundamental to IQ. No? EQ requires a more deeper quality of intelligence that is able to understand the emotional side of people and accommodate the emotional needs in the middle of problem solving as much as possible. But that does not mean pampering each other all the time. It does not mean giving up what is smart just to be accommodative to people. It is not that. EQ means to be sensitive to the emotional aspects also. I am aware of them, then I decide how whether to accommodate them or not, and all that. And that's where comes SQ or spiritual quotient. They call it as the most fundamental level of intelligence and the most important and the deepest level of intelligence on which EQ and IQ are based, in the sense your EQ makes sense only if it is based on good SQ. In a given situation, what is the right thing to do? How to do something very efficiently is IQ. I'm giving a very basic definition. You can go and look up in the internet more about these three levels of intelligence: IQ, EQ, and SQ. Probably they give this famous example. You have a group of people with you, and you have to place a very heavy ladder on the wall. So you manage them, and you find the most efficient way, and then you place the ladder on the wall with the right inclination and all that in the given time with the given resources, with a good finish, with a good outcome, without any accidents and all that. So that is IQ. EQ is at the end of the job, everybody is happy, and you make sure that you make sure that the bitterness by the end of the job among the team that worked for putting the ladder up, the bitterness is minimal. That is EQ. We cannot, when we are working with a team, we cannot ensure zero bitterness. Each person is a university unto himself or herself. So we do what we can and try to make it as much pleasant an experience as possible. Then SQ talks about is the ladder on the right wall. Have I placed the ladder on the correct wall? So what is the point if you do all this very nicely and then you understand everybody's happy, the ladder is placed perfectly, but then it's on the wrong wall. There is no point. So this spiritual quotient is something that gives us fundamental direction in life, purpose of life, what feels meaningful, what would be the right thing to do in this context, ethical discernment, all those things that are very important, that make life meaningful, that makes an action truly impactful, that makes our decisions truly purposeful and meaningful. And at the end of it, it gives us a very deep satisfaction in a very fundamental level, and it is aligned with dharma. So all those things come under SQ. It's a very important thing. This SQ is not possible without a sattvic mind. At least a functional sattvic mind at a given moment, for a given task, at a given period of time, you must be able to command a sattvic state of mind. I think you're all aware of the word sattvic state of mind. Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic, the three modes of nature. The serene mode, the passionate and the active and the dynamic mode, and the lazy, indolent and the ignorant mode. White, red, black, right? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. If you are not sure, you can look at it. Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga of Bhagavad Gita talks about it. You can look into it, right? Daivasura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga talks about it. The divine qualities, the demonic qualities, right? The divine and the non-divine. We don't say demonic. We say the divine and the non-divine qualities. Daiva Asura. Right. Sura Asura. Sura means the godly. Asura means the ungodly. Basically, which means disharmonious, unwholesome. If you want to hijack this modern Buddhist word, you can say unwholesome actions are asuric. Unwholesome temperament is asuric. Right. So this quality of mind that we are talking about is SQ, spiritual intelligence. That spiritual intelligence or spiritual quotient shines the brightest in a person with chitta shuddhi or purity of mind. Only a person in whose mind the sinful karma is not a dominant force, one who has minimal effect of sins and maximum effect of virtue or punya, is we call as punyatma, a virtuous person. A person who is born as a result of good karma, the person whose mind and body is predominantly the result of good karma. We have discussed this before. A lot of these qualities are uh, mostly by birth, actually. That's the difficult part. You don't have to worry, because the very fact that you are listening to this discussion means you already have enough good karma to proceed further. Otherwise, you would not even be interested in sitting and discussing all these things, and be interested in spiritual goals and wanting to go deeper into life, being more objective and critical about oneself. All these things are already, very divine qualities. It is not to be taken for granted. When you look at the level of lack of virtue in the world, no matter what flaws we have as individuals, the very fact that we are on the path already means a lot, right? So this question, you listeners don't have to worry about it. I'm giving it as a thing for general understanding. Papaugah paridhuyatam. Clear away the sins, the cloud of sins that is affecting the quality of mind. Then you arrive at that ability to become clear, to have clarity. You have the ability to experience clarity at a very fundamental level, not just a problem solving level, but at a very fundamental level of discernment, what is nowadays called as SQ. Ability to distinguish the right from the wrong, the good from the bad. what is shreyas and what is preyas, what is immediately pleasant but may not be that good for the long run, and what is good in the long run, what is aligned with the universal values and human values, and the ability to choose what is aligned with the eternal values against what is aligned with immediate subjective interests, egoistic interest. The ability to choose an action that is aligned with a universal eternal value, human value, instead of an action that is aligned with a subjective or a selfish or a short sighted goal, simply because this is more pleasant and that is more difficult. I will choose the righteous goal. I will take the righteous choice even though it is difficult. It is like doing the right thing even if it is tough, and being more at peace than doing what is easy and compromising your fundamentals. You might be apparently more relaxed or more successful, or you might not be appearing to struggle a lot, but inside you lose your peace and the sense of wholesomeness in your heart, and you are not happy with yourself, and it feel very superficial, and then you have to numb yourself to the deeper things of life, and then you feel miserable in the long run, right? So outside very nice, inside miserable, the typical, the classical, the modern Western materialistic life, which is turning around, thanks to all the uh, craving for authenticity that the latest generation is having. It is changing a lot. That's wonderful thing happening. But for us to understand, to have a very common understanding, is when a mind is not impelled by sinful karma, a person is able to choose what is right, even if it is difficult, against what is not appropriate. Even if it means a great difficulty for oneself, even if it means not a great success, even if it means an uncertain outcome. I don't know the outcome, but this is the right thing to do. So these kind of things, this kind of thinking comes only when the mind is not propelled by sinful karma, only when the mind is propelled by virtuous karma. So removing the effect of sinful karmas from the mind is very, very important, because only then you develop the viveka, the discernment that allows you to look into the basic limitations of the so called happy experiences of life. Whatever you call as a happy experience, whatever achievement you say that gives you happiness, in all those positive things of life, and fundamentally looking for happiness in time with effort. Bhava means becoming, bhava means belonging to this world. In the future, bhava sukha means pleasure or experiential happiness that is achieved in time using the agency of the body and the mind. Worldly happiness, in one word, we say citrinbam, or worldly happiness. What is worldly happiness versus spiritual happiness? Spiritual happiness is not dependent on things, situations, and people. Spiritual happiness results from the quality of mind, from the quality of prana, from the quality of clarity that is not dependent on things. Things happening or not happening cannot alter the quality of spiritual happiness. So, a person who is completely available for the inner world, I'm using a very normal term. These kind of terms we don't use: inner world, outer world. We don't use in Vedanta, because these are all very common man terms. They are not. They are very misleading. So you might, if you say inner world, you might think that you have to sit and close your eyes. That's why, and go inside, deep dive in. No, but it makes it appeals to a certain deeper intuitive sense inside us. So I am using the word, the happiness that comes from the inner world is spiritual happiness. It's a happiness that is connected to the fundamental reality of our nature. Either you experience it through the relationship with God, or you experience it as a result of the silent mind that reflects the truth of the self out of clarity that comes from the study of Shastra and reflection. So, either from bhakti or jnana, you arrive at the true happiness. That is a natural quality of the self. That is a natural quality of the mind that is centered in the truth. The mind that is centered in the truth will experience the happiness that is not affected by time, situations, or people, or events. What happens around will not affect this state of happiness. So, why I am presenting it like this? Because we are pitching spiritual happiness against worldly happiness. Worldly happiness, you are very clear as an experience. You know what is going to happen when you win $1 million. You know what is going to happen if you get the right relationship. You know what is going to happen when you have acquire a lot of name and fame and people are praising you. All these things you are able to understand, and that is why you are going behind those goals. It's very easy for a normal person to go behind a goal or a happiness that one can understand. So it becomes very important to present the spiritual goal of liberation as the highest happiness. Usually in the teaching we present it in a negative way, in a way, absence of sorrow, absence of bondage. That is the way the Shastra actually presents it. But once in a while we say Brahmanandam, the joy of Brahman, but then we will have the commentary gives us a different picture altogether. So it is called as the per inbam, means the great happiness. The worldly happiness is called a citrinbam or small happiness. Small happiness and the great happiness, the greatest happiness. That is why in a text called Anandavalli in Taittiriya Upanishad, translations are available. You can just go through that part, which talks about what is 1 unit of human happiness. 100 times that is the 1 unit of a certain demigod. Then 100 times that is the 1 unit of the heavenly gods. Like that, it goes as scales of happiness. And then it talks about the happiness of the person, one who has attained Brahman, the one who knows Brahman it is beyond words and all that. It goes, because I have to take you from what is familiar to what is subtle. It's called as the approach of cross to the subtle. Stula Arundhati Nyaya. In that this constellation called Saptarishi Mandalam, and there is a star called Vasishta. During the marriage ceremony, they will show the Arundhati star to the couple. The couple has to see together this Arundhati star. There is a huge story behind that. So the story behind seeing the Arundhati star in Vedic marriage, if you put it, you will get the story in internet. You can read it. So this Arundhati star is a very small star. So what we will do is, look at this tree. Then from there you look up to the sky. Do you see the moon? From the moon you go in this direction. Oh, you see that square kind of thing there with a small thing jetting out. That constellation. Yes, I'm able to see. Then in that constellation you are able to see the tail kind of thing, like a stick sticking out, 2 3 stars. Yes. Then in that star, the last but one star, or the last star, you see able to see that bright star. Yes. Now keep on focusing on the bright star. Now you are able to see the other star which is small, that is next to this bright star. That is Arundhati. So they take you from a more tangible thing to a less and less tangible and a subtle thing, and make you see what is subtle, get you more and more familiar. So that is the approach. We start with what is familiar and take you into and motivate you to go to what is unfamiliar. So when I am talking about inner happiness, spiritual happiness, eternal happiness, these words practically don't mean anything. You know, already you are having some fun in life. So I can't tell you to leave all your fun, pursuit of fun, and then come for eternal happiness, spiritual liberation, all these terms. You will be able to go behind this blah blah all these castles in the air without understanding. Probably, when you are having some personal attachment to the guru, or you are having some personal attachment to that community, it makes you feel good in so many other ways. So you are able to somehow uh, take in all these abstractions, spiritual abstractions, and your brain wires it into the things that the things that you are actually there for. Subconsciously you are there for some fun, you are there for some picking up a good boyfriend or a girlfriend, you are there for having a good community or nice food, or you are just there for the pleasant experience. Just no uh, rat race that you see in your everyday life in a mega city. In an ashram there is no rat race, and everything is calm and people are nice and all that. So for various kind of things, or in some you have some weird kind of fetish for this guru who is there, uh, whatever, guru or guru mai, or some mother sentiment, father sentiment, it's all mixed up. So we people, when they go into a sangha, when they go into spiritual thing, usually the motive, the subconscious motive, is a very personal motive. Then gradually the person becomes mature and comes to the actual motive. So when we are going to come to that, that is connected to the question we ended the last class with. So the proportion of the people who come to a spiritual community with real maturity and with the real quest, a precipitated, intelligent, discerned, clear quest that is rooted in spiritual knowledge, is negligible. There are 1,000 people coming to an ashram, probably one or two might have the right state of mind and the right clarity on what they are here for. The rest is all evolving in time. So that is the level of that is the proportion of the quality of the right seeker in a community, because that is the proportion of anything that is of value in our society. You go into a community of rich people, 100 rich people, the virtuously rich who will not do any foul play will be one or two. 100 or 1,000 rich people, if you go, the proportion or the chance of finding is 1 in 1,000. A good man and a rich man, the one who is committed to values, who does not cheat, who does not hoard, it's rare, right? Any value you take, right? So the same thing happens in a spiritual community also. So that sample that comes to an ashram or a spiritual community is the sample from the world. So the quality of the spiritual community also reflects the quality of the general population of that country, or of the sample, the sample of the people from where the members for the community are selected. That sample depends on the quality of the entire subset of the human society from which that sample had come. The set of people have come to the spiritual community. So the right discernment is possible only when the mind is free from the sinful karma, and that is a process that goes over a long period of time, over many lifetimes. So papauga paridhuyatam, clearing away the sinful karma from the mind, allows you to see things as they are, and for you to be able to discern the value of eternal happiness when compared to worldly happiness. So we are always talking this as the eternal happiness, because you understand experiential happiness. I am taking you from experiential happiness and trying to give you a picture of what is eternal happiness, or the happiness of the inner world, in the terms that you are familiar with and that you use for your experiential happiness. See, the experiential happiness begins at a certain point of time. After a lot of effort, you arrive at it. Then you have to sustain it. You are always anxious that it will stop at some point. And no matter what you try, it stops at some point. It is temporary. And even when you are experiencing, a lot of factors have to cooperate: your body condition, mind condition, the situational condition, your mood, all kinds of things have to cooperate. even when the object of happiness is next to you. In order for you to enjoy that object of happiness or that situation of happiness, one needs to be in the right state of mind, and a various set of factors have to cooperate. So the nature of worldly happiness that you are pursuing, that you are familiar with, is fraught with defects. It's full of defects. If you actually analyze the various goals that you are pursuing, which you think after achieving those goals you will be happy, if you really analyze the true nature of those achievements, you will see a host of defects. If your mind, you will be able to do this analysis if your mind is pure enough. For example, if you are in a mad rush behind something, you will not be able to stop and think about it. The rush will carry you over. The rush will not allow you to reflect into the situation in a more objective way. So the rush will push you to think only about various ways and means of achieving that. It will not allow you to think whether that achievement is worthy of achievement or not. Sometimes what is worthy of achievement will be shown in your head as not the right thing to do, because it is challenging certain very deep seated emotional preferences that you have, like what happened to Arjuna in the battlefield in the Bhagavad Gita first chapter. If you read until the 10th shloka of second chapter in Bhagavad Gita, the whole thing you will see how Arjuna gets depressed, and out of the despondency and depression, he comes with a fake logic of how war is bad. So most of the so-called social activism nowadays is like Arjuna's, is a result of despondency. It's like Arjuna's despondency giving a fake logic and misunderstanding karma. That is what I said, smriti vibramaha. Arjuna is experiencing smriti vibramaha, where he is wrongly connecting the dots and arriving at a conclusion that is not in line with the teachings of the Shastra or the scriptures or the wise people, right? The teachings in line with the tradition of the wise people, that is not in alignment with the conclusions of Arjuna. You can look at the reference text is the first chapter and the beginning of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It talks about that. If you have to study that with the right commentary, don't read this Bhagavad Gita as it is and all that. You please read some proper commentary with Shankaracharya's commentary. Translations are available and an explanation. Gita Home Study course by Swami Dayananda Saraswati. All those things are available. You can go and look at it. Gita plus Gorakhpur. That is all right. So this kind of when you study the whole thing, you will understand how a mind can twist the facts, how the mind can twist the facts in a way to suit its own agenda. All the points mentioned are facts, but the fact is not the truth. Simply presenting the facts will not reflect the truth or the reality unless the facts are presented in the right chronology. You mess up the chronology and you mess up the connections and you mess up the interconnectedness between the facts and the ground reality. It will not reflect the ground reality. It will not reflect the right, it will not give the right picture to make the right decisions. It is twisting of the data, torturing the data to suit one's own agenda. There was a great mathematician called John von Neumann. He said, if you torture data enough, it will confess you anything. That's exactly what happens in so-called scientific research these days. Constant statistical torture to extract some kind of a conclusion out of a given data set that suits the corporate agenda, and then highlighting that, over highlighting that, and exaggerating that in order to make a product more marketable, more attractive to the market. A person who was working for toothpaste research, uh, a a dentist and a dental a dentist and a medical person and a PhD, a person who works for some toothpaste company as a team of doctors. She says they are working into testing the product and all that. So she was telling me about the kind of pressure they use to over exaggerate a very, very extremely small outcome from a given data set of the experiments done with that toothpaste, and to highlight it out of proportion and make it look like, as though that is the central main characteristic of that toothpaste. And that happens in all the medicines, in vaccines, and everything. So the entire commercial world is dependent on data torture. Because it is focused on profit at the cost of values. Similarly, selfishness, when it is clouded and your mind is full of sinful karma, it will not allow you the right discernment to see the limitations in worldly happiness. So when you have the teaching about the eternal happiness or the happiness that comes from spiritual liberation, I am explaining it as a state of mind that is not affected by people, situations, and events in life. A kind of a happiness which is more of a kind of peace and a deep sense of satisfaction that is not dependent on circumstances and situations and events in life. That is something that you can understand. So, based, but this is achievable. This is an experienceable thing. It is an experiential thing that you can appreciate as a concept. So, in one way, you can consider it like that. Though it is not that, it is not even dependent on mind. But what is not dependent on mind, you cannot understand. So I am explaining what is the happiness of spiritual liberation in terms of quality of mind, which is something we can understand and compare with what is the happiness that we experience from worldly things, so that we will be able to appreciate this spiritual happiness from material happiness. Okay, so that is the bhavasukhe dosho nusandhiyatam. With this understanding, I will be able to appreciate and look into the defects in the worldly happiness. Then I desire to, then I say, I am going to choose eternal happiness instead of this time bound, struggle based worldly happiness. And eternal is something that is always there. And from the scriptures, I have heard that the one who knows the self attains the highest happiness, attains this eternal thing, and the one crosses the ocean of struggle and sorrow. So I want to understand the true nature of myself. I want to understand the truth about myself simply because that's what is going to give me this infinite happiness. Atmecha vyavasiyatam. I cultivate that desire. Having understood that and having cultivated that deep yearning for self knowledge, I give up all my societal and family related attachments and try to seek as much as possible solitude. What is it called? Atmecha vyavasiyatam nijagrihat turnam vinirgamyatam. I run away from my house. Then I seek refuge in a sangha. Which means what? Practically, we have seen it in an elaborate way in the last class, and then we are going to continue that with the question. That's what we discussed. So, when you want to go and take refuge in a sangha, the problem comes. The people there are, more nutcases. You see more nutcases than you see in a normal life. Right? So that was the question. So when we go to a sangha, because it is for the purpose of being more committed to, and for the purpose of looking for a synergy that will support me in my quest for eternal happiness, I go and associate with a set of people who believe in eternal happiness, who have faith in the pursuit of eternal happiness, who have faith in the existence of the eternal. I also mentioned to you the hard problem of consciousness. Whether consciousness is fundamental, more fundamental to matter, or consciousness is an emergent property of matter. I asked you to Google into that. So, and do some search and read about the hard problem of consciousness. That is why we need Shraddha in the teachings. Only with Shraddha in the teachings you can proceed further, because we are all shooting in the blind from within the mind. Logically, the most intelligent minds of the world are divided. One set of the most intelligent minds of the world, all the great scientists, one set of the scientists are taking the consciousness is fundamental stance. Other set of scientists are taking no, consciousness is an emergent property of the matter stance. Both are great scientists. Both know how to use logic. Both know how to use the scientific tools. But still the conclusion is different, because this is not the pramana of senses or sign. The pramana required for this is different. The means of knowledge required for this knowledge about the eternal is different, and that is Shruti, the Veda. That is why the whole thing starts with Vedo Nityamadiyatam Taduditam Karma Swanushtiyatam. We are cultivating your Shraddha all the way. Without cultivating Shraddha, one cannot arrive at the right discernment for the right. One cannot arrive at the right discernment and the attitude required for the self knowledge, which has what I keep repeatedly saying as pramana buddhi. The attitude or the discernment that sees Veda as the valid means of knowledge, the Vedic tradition as the valid source of knowledge for things connected to the spiritual reality, that is outside the scope of my sense faculties, that is outside the scope of my logic, and it's outside the scope of my scientific investigation. It is extremely different from telling that there is a God sitting in heaven and you have to have faith. It is extremely different from the faith, blind faith demanded by the monotheistic cult. The faith in the Veda is a faith pending discovery, because the knowledge revealed is about yourself. You already exist. You are not required to go and achieve something, and required to bow down to something that is not you, some big bully sitting in heaven. It is extremely different from the approach of the monotheistic religions. Of course, you have some divisions within the Vedic tradition that are, showing God, and there are some verses here and there that, because of the fear of God, because of the fear of Him, uh, the wind blows, the fire burns, and all that is there. But but those are context. They cannot be taken out of context. When we interpret those verses within the context of the traditional methodology of interpretation, then it means something totally different. It is very different from telling, you follow, these are the commandments, you follow. If you don't follow, you go to eternal hell. If you follow and you be my donkey, you come to heaven and then continue to be a heavenly donkey. So it is very different from that. And this kind of heaven tourism promotion is there in Hinduism also, because this kind of interpretation reflects the quality of mind. As I told you, when a mind that is highly loaded with agenda, it can twist the facts, and it can twist the scripture, it can twist anything. And that is why taking refuge, Sangha Satsu Vidhiyatam, is extremely important. Satsu is the key word here. Satsu means people who are devoted to the spiritual reality, to the eternal, to the truth. That is revealed by the Veda. Now, the people who are devoted to the truth revealed by the Veda will also be devoted to the lifestyle recommended by the Veda. So, you go and have a look at the lifestyle of the group. That is where you avoid the, that is where you minimize the wrong human elements. No, that is how you minimize getting stuck with the wrong group. Because when you go out there into the spiritual wild, I will call it like that, when you go out into the wild, here we are going out into the spiritual wild, because you don't know what's out there. You have a lot of things going on. It's a billions and billions of dollars are rolling in the moksha market. So that is the reality of today. So when you go out there and you are ashram hopping, let's say, a backpacker, a spiritual backpacker ashram hopping, right? That is that is what is happening with the most people. They take a year off and come to India. So I have seen a lot of people like this in the late 90s and the beginning of 2000. I don't know what is the trend now. So they used to say that we take a year off and we go and explore, and they go stay in ashrams, do some yoga, and then they're in this search. You cannot do it with being too naive and uninformed. One has to be informed. Has to be informed means one has to study. If you go without study, you get carried away by Kundalini market, Kundalini shops. You get carried away by Shakti Path shops. You get carried away by Babaji in the Himalayas shop. You get carried away by these, gurus whose mere look can liberate you shops. And then the guru whose hug can liberate you shops. All these various kind of time-bound promises. Instead of time-bound happiness promises in the material world, you're going into the time-bound promises of this so-called spiritual world, right? But this can be avoided if you do some study, because wherever Shastra is absent, that place is to be rejected. That is where a beautiful instruction from a recommendation from Sri Adi Shankaracharya comes. Asampradaya with murkavata apekshaniyaha. A person who may be learned, who may be very smart and intelligent, who is able to talk very well and all that, but that person is not according to the sampradaya. The way the person presents the spiritual things, not in a way that is according to the sampradaya. The person does not attribute his lineage or allegiance to a proper sampradaya. You don't know who the person's guru is, or which tradition he comes under, or which tradition he respects, and what experts from the tradition he at least brings into his setup. If he is not very learned, he might bring into the setup experts from the tradition, and those people will take care of all the spiritual aspects that are not directly connected to his main teaching. For example, you will have to do some rituals, you might have to do um, some handling of some scriptures. If this person is not very learned, a proper person a guru who respects the tradition will at least bring experts from the field and make them talk about it. He will not poke his nose and talk about everything. He will not go like a high priest and consecrate an idol, a huge idol, simply because he has money, and then you create a mystery around it, and then you market it, and then you call yourself as Sadguru. No, you will not do all these kind of things. And I am the true guru. No, you appropriate terms from the tradition, and then you crown yourself as the great master, the true master, the great master. And then you put pamphlets telling he is a self-realized master. No, these kind of things will not be there in any traditional setup. All our acharyas, for example, Shankaracharyas, they are all extremely learned. But you see this, when they present themselves, they will only say, with the grace of the Guru, with the grace of Bhagavan, in thinking about the whole discourse, the whole methodology of talking, the whole methodology of presenting, the whole methodology of presenting them. The devotees will present them as the Sadguru because of his association with the Shastra. So sampradaya with asampradaya with means the one who is not connected to a sampradaya either directly or indirectly. Directly empowered or indirectly empowered. Let me put it like that. And one does not connect you to the sampradaya, but instead connects you to himself or herself. It becomes a personality cult. All these are big red flags. So when you do proper study, you understand that Shankaracharya has said asampradaya. So this kind of a person should be rejected like you reject a fool. And the greatest example that is given in the Shastra, who should be rejected as a qualified teacher? From the category of a qualified teacher, the greatest person who is supposed to be rejected, the example given is Lord Buddha. Lord Buddha is to be rejected. Means Buddhism is to be rejected. Why it is to be rejected? Because it is not in line with the Sampradaya. They may talk a lot of things, but then it goes off in a tangent after a point. And why Buddha should be rejected? Because Buddha is the greatest and the highest of the enlightened people that whom we consider as enlightened. And when Buddha himself cannot be taken as a teacher, what about all these little fellows here? It is called as the Prathama Malla Nyaya, the top wrestler logic. If I want to become world champion, I have to fight the current world champion. When I knock off the current world champion, I am the world champion. So if I can dismiss Buddha as not the right person to go to as a teacher, then what about all these other jokers who are there? They are nowhere in the picture. So the key point here is sampradaya. Sangaha sattu vidhiyatam. Seek the company of those who are devoted to the tradition. A community that is devoted to the tradition, at least in practice and spirit, and they're trying their best to align with it. So when there is a disagreement, when there is a mismatch, and when you have to discuss something that is not okay, both of you are coming from the same fundamental, both of you are aware of what the Shastra says, and then there is a common ground that will control both your minds and help you both to arrive at what is appropriate and what is okay, and to help you to tackle a problem. I'm not saying problems are not there in traditional ashrams, but because Shastra is above you and me and everyone else, and including the Guru himself, with the guidance of the Shastra, all the problems can be solved. You know, can be resolved in a amicable way, and there is a hope, there is scope for resolving. But if it is not based on Shastra, then you are all shooting in the blind. It's a personality cult, it is the egos that clash. Then it is a it is like a blind leading the blind, you go nowhere, right? Tasmat Shastram Pramanante. That is why, because that is why the Shastra is the Pramana regarding what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. Right. Okay. So now we have a question. With this question answer, I will end the class. Is it not unkind to see or discriminate people as low, intelligent, or fool? Is it not himsa or harming others? Absolutely not. Because when you go to the market to buy a product, you see a product as, you are not basically dismissing people. You are discriminating between the quality of mind and the quality of the actions. You are weighing the actions against the standard. This is one of the biggest problems that we have. It is unkind is to go and call the person and say, hey, you are low class, hey, you are a fool. That is unkind. But a fool is a fool. If I give you a common standard, so there is something called as a IQ test. Okay. Again, the question is, now I will copy this and post it keep it in my WhatsApp, so that I will be able to see that in the next class. Yeah, 1 second, hold on. Mm. Mm. Okay. So I was looking for this. Doesn't matter. We could clarify a lot of things because this is ongoing discussion. Every point has in so many. So I will first address this. There is something called as an IQ test online. Okay, it asks you to take an IQ test, and you score 90 in the IQ test. Some score 110, some score 170. Right now, can you see this test is a standard? So you are basically trying to pitch yourself against a standard. When you pitch yourself against a standard, it is going to tell you whether you are low quality, medium quality, or high quality. So we are trying to pitch. We have to make a decision here. I need to decide if I want to have a bread, buy bread. I need to decide which bakery I should buy the bread from. This bakery is good. This is an old bakery. They use a traditional method. They use sourdough, so it's a good bread. The other one is using a lot of chemicals. We are making a decision. So why we cannot make a decision about a community and a set of people and a teacher and other things where we are going to invest our entire life on? That does not make it unkind. What about being unkind to oneself? Being undiscerning or not being responsible to oneself. What about that? We don't call them a fool. Here it is telling, Murkavata apekshaniyaha, when the Shastra says that, it is for you, it is not calling Buddha a fool. Even though a person is very smart and intelligent, how you would not go to a fool for taking instructions, right? You are going in a, you are traveling through a small town. your internet is not working, there is no GPS, let us say, a village, some remote village. So there are some 2-3 paths going on. There are some people standing there. One person looks like he is mentally very disturbed or a drunkard. Then there are some other people who look very responsible and they are dressed properly and all that. Whom will you go and ask the direction? Will you go and ask the direction to the drunkard, or you will ask direction to somebody who looks a little sensible, at least based on what you already know? Right? You will always go to the person who inspires confidence that he can tell you the right direction. Right? So we cannot drag it too much. We cannot say that it is the basically a psychopath who is well dressed and all well behaved. What about that? So like that, we can keep on, dismissing every criteria with exceptions. But exceptions do not make the rule. So when we are talking about a generic advice, we are going by the rule and not by the exception. So exceptions have to be accommodated as we go along the way, and probably we put in some checks and balances to make sure that we are not affected by the exceptional cases. So that is where punya comes into the factor. Papauga paridhuyatam, we see, right? So when you are cleared of your sinful karma, life will direct you to the right person. That is also there. It is not just that your mind is capable of discerning what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, but life will take you to the right person, take you and put you in front of the right teacher. That is called Ishvara Anugraha. God's grace will take you there. So all the first shloka, all that you are supposed to do in the first shloka, Teneshasya Vidiyatam Apachitihi, worship the Lord through the actions that are to be done, and do all the actions in a worshipful attitude along with your worship of the Lord. That is why Sangraha Satsu Vidiyatam Bhagavatah Bhaktir Diyatam. That is the next instruction. Make your devotion to the Lord very steady, because only with the divine grace one can navigate the spiritual quest without being hijacked into the wrong directions. So we will discuss more deeply about this aspect. After having gone to the right Sangha, how we proceed, we will discuss. And I will start with this question. I think I have given a second level of analysis that is connected to our everyday life. And the next class, I will start by reading this question and continuing that. And I have saved it in the WhatsApp. So I will save it elsewhere. So it will be accessible for me to start the question in the next class. Today the time is up. So we will call it a day. And we will finish the class with our Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Thank you.